Vikings, let's win the game.
It feels like every headline surrounding the Vikings this week comes with a question that could change the conversation. Are the Vikings seriously considering a move for Kayvon Thibodeaux? Why are other teams already fantasizing about trading for Justin Jefferson? Has the league somehow started doubting the best receiver in football? And Kirk Cousins just sparked controversy after comments that many fans believe were a subtle shot at the Vikings. Some of these stories could fade away before the season even begins. But one of them might quietly shape the direction of this franchise heading into training camp. There's a position on this roster that suddenly doesn't feel as comfortable as it did a few months ago. That's what happens when you lose a proven contributor, and now the conversation has shifted toward whether Minnesota should take a swing on someone whose career has been anything but predictable. That player is Kayvon Thibodeaux, and the possibility of him becoming available is one of the more intriguing stories of the summer. ESPN's Dan Graziano recently identified the former Giants' first-round pick as a legitimate trade candidate, pointing to the reality that he's entering the fifth-year option of his rookie contract with a hefty salary and no long-term extension in place. The production simply hasn't matched expectations lately. After exploding for 11.5 sacks in 2023, his numbers have fallen sharply over the last two seasons. That's naturally going to cool interest around the league. But here's where things get interesting for Minnesota. Brian Flores has built a reputation for maximizing defensive talent. He loves versatility, athleticism, and players capable of creating chaos from different alignments. Thibodeaux has always possessed those physical tools, even if the consistency hasn't shown up every Sunday. His run defense actually improved significantly last season, although missed tackles remain a concern. That's why this isn't a conversation about acquiring a finished superstar. It's about betting on untapped potential before someone else figures it out. Reports indicate the Giants previously rejected a fourth-round offer and still value him much higher than the rest of the league does. A second-round pick seems unrealistic, but a third-round selection might eventually become the middle ground. That's where Minnesota's situation becomes fascinating. Thanks to the Jonathan Greenard trade, the Vikings own an extra third-round pick in 2027. In theory, they could use that selection to bring in Thibodeaux without sacrificing their own original asset. Suddenly, what looked like losing Greenard could eventually become Greenard turning into Thibodeaux plus rookie safety Jacoby Thomas. That's an interesting way to frame it. Of course, there are other paths. Minnesota could let Bo Richter, Tyler Batty, Cameron Stewart, Chaz Chambliss, Jake Golday, or even Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins battle for the depth role throughout training camp. Free agents like Jadeveon Clowney or Leonard Floyd remain available too. The front office isn't short on options. The real question is whether taking a chance on a 25-year-old with first-round talent is the kind of move that could quietly make this defense even more dangerous by the time January arrives. Every offseason produces at least one trade rumor that feels completely detached from reality. Then somehow it catches fire anyway. That's exactly what's happening now surrounding the face of this franchise. Justin Jefferson has become the latest superstar linked to blockbuster trade speculation after CBS Sports suggested the Tampa Bay Buccaneers should do everything possible to acquire him if Minnesota ever considered moving on. Let's be perfectly honest. Vikings fans aren't losing sleep because they think Jefferson is actually getting traded. They're frustrated because these conversations continue to ignore what he means to this organization. This isn't just another elite wide receiver. This is the player who owns the most receiving yards in NFL history through his first 5 seasons. That's historic production. Yet somehow people keep acting like draft picks could simply replace that. The proposed package? A first-round pick and a third-round pick. Some have even floated adding Chris Godwin or young receiver Emeka Egbuka into the deal. From Tampa Bay's perspective, of course they'd love that opportunity. Any contender would. But from Minnesota's perspective, why would you voluntarily move on from the centerpiece of your offense while he's still under contract through 2028? Unless the entire franchise completely collapses, which nobody inside TCO Performance Center expects, there's simply no football reason to entertain that conversation. Kevin O'Connell has built his offense around creating opportunities for Jefferson because players like him almost never become available. General managers spend decades hoping to draft one receiver capable of changing games the way he does. Minnesota already has that player. Trading him for picks would create another hole instead of solving one. That's what makes these rumors feel disconnected from reality. Sure, opposing fan bases dream about seeing Jefferson in their uniform. Raiders fans have discussed it. Buccaneers fans would celebrate it. Every contender would immediately make the call if they sensed even the slightest opening. But dreaming about acquiring Justin Jefferson and Minnesota actually putting him on the market are two completely different conversations. One is fun off-season speculation. The other would completely alter the identity of this football team. And right now, there's no sign the Vikings have any interest in going down that road. Sometimes the loudest opinions come from people looking only at the stat sheet instead of everything happening around it. That's exactly what happened when CBS sports analyst Ledger Douzable argued that Justin Jefferson no longer belongs among the top 2 receivers in football. His reasoning centered around Jefferson barely reaching 1,000 receiving yards last season, suggesting the production simply isn't what it used to be. But context matters a lot. Minnesota's quarterback situation last year was one of the worst the franchise has experienced in quite some time. Between J.J. McCarthy, Carson Wentz, and Max Brosmer, the offense struggled to generate consistent efficiency through the air. That instability affected everyone, especially the player defenses focused on stopping every single week. Jefferson wasn't suddenly getting less open. The football simply wasn't arriving with the same consistency or accuracy that elite receivers depend on. Even so, he still managed to extend his remarkable streak and surpass 1,000 yards yet again. Step back and look at the bigger picture. Through 6 NFL seasons, Jefferson has already accumulated more receiving yards than any player in league history over that same span. More than Randy Moss, more than Jerry Rice, more than Julio Jones, more than Calvin Johnson. That's not the profile of a player who's declining. That's the profile of someone producing at a pace we've literally never seen before. Yes, Jamar Chase posted bigger numbers last season. Credit where it's due. But one season doesn't erase 6 years of sustained greatness. The bigger challenge now isn't proving Jefferson is still elite. It's giving him the kind of stability that allows everyone else to remember it. That's why the conversation shifts toward 2026, where there's genuine optimism that Kyler Murray could stabilize the offense. Murray has consistently elevated elite pass catchers throughout his career, whether it was DeAndre Hopkins, Marvin Harrison Jr., or Trey McBride. If he provides competent quarterback play, Jefferson's numbers should naturally bounce back. More importantly, stability matters. Since entering the league, Jefferson has caught passes from 10 different quarterbacks. 10. That's almost impossible to believe for a player who's still in the prime of his career. If Murray can finally provide continuity, don't be surprised if this entire conversation looks very different a few months from now. Not every comment is intended as criticism. Sometimes it's simply interpreted that way because of who says it and where they've been. That's exactly the situation surrounding Kirk Cousins after he praised the Las Vegas Raiders offseason program, calling it the most productive and urgent set of OT as he's ever experienced. On the surface, that's a compliment for new Raiders head coach Clint Kubiak. Dig a little deeper, though, and Vikings fans couldn't help but wonder if it also reflected poorly on Kevin O'Connell and Minnesota's approach during Cousins' 6 seasons here. Maybe that wasn't his intention. Maybe he genuinely feels Kubiak created a different atmosphere. But it's hard not to compare the environments when those comments come from someone who spent so many years inside the Vikings building. What's fascinating is that Kubiak is experiencing his first opportunity as an NFL head coach. You'd naturally assume O'Connell's established system would already possess that same level of urgency and efficiency. Yet Cousins clearly experienced something different. Whether that's meaningful or simply one veteran quarterback complimenting his new coach is something only those inside those buildings truly know. Meanwhile, Minnesota's own offseason has hardly looked disorganized. The Vikings wrapped up OTAs with encouraging updates on Christian Darrisaw and Caleb Banks while continuing to develop the quarterback competition involving Kyler Murray and J.J. McCarthy. New additions like Juwan Jennings, Demon Claiborne, and Dylan Bell have also generated excitement heading toward training camp. As for Cousins, his own future remains uncertain. Las Vegas drafted Fernando Mendoza first overall, making it obvious that Cousins is serving as the bridge until the rookie is ready. He hopes to prove he still has enough left to guide the Raiders into playoff contention, but critics continue questioning whether the version of Kirk Cousins we saw in Minnesota still exists. His time in Atlanta certainly raised doubts. Now he gets one more opportunity to answer those questions. As for the Vikings, they've already turned the page. The attention now belongs to the quarterbacks competing to lead this franchise into its next era. That's why these next few weeks feel so important. Every rumor, every debate, and every opinion points back to the same reality. This franchise is entering another defining chapter. Whether it's deciding if a young pass rusher is worth the gamble, shutting down unrealistic Justin Jefferson trade chatter, watching Jefferson answer his critics on the field, or seeing Kirk Cousins begin what could be the final stage of his career somewhere else, every storyline is connected by one thing: the future of the Vikings. Training camp is almost here, and that's when speculation finally gives way to answers. Let me know which story grabbed your attention the most, and as always, thank you for standing with the purple and gold.